They took on orders for birthdays, small parties, and even some wedding cakes. And customers began trickling in, slowly but surely. However, the business wasn't bringing in large profits, and the dream of becoming a top bakery in Uyo felt far away. Betty, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. We work so hard, extra hard day and night, but it feels like we're just barely getting by. In the heart of Uyo, Akwa Ibom, where life was vibrant and the streets were filled with the sounds of busy markets, two childhood friends, Betty and Sarah, shared a bond that went beyond friendship. From a young age, they had been inseparable, spending countless hours together in their neighborhood, dreaming about the future. Both girls had a passion for baking, and they would often find themselves in Betty's mother's kitchen, mixing flour and sugar, attempting to bake cakes using the simple recipes they found in old cookbooks. Their shared love for baking grew with each passing year, and soon they both decided to turn that passion into a career. After finishing culinary school, where they learned the fine art of cake making and decorating, they felt ready to make their mark. Together, they pooled their savings and opened a small beautiful bakery in the cozy corner of the city, naming it Sweet Creations. In the beginning, things were tough. Their shop was modest, with only a few tables and a small glass display filled with freshly baked cakes and cupcakes with a lot of pastries. They took on orders for birthdays, small parties, and even some wedding cakes. The locals started to notice their cakes, and customers began trickling in, slowly but surely. However, the business wasn't bringing in large profits, and the dream of becoming a top bakery in Uyo felt far away. Despite the slow growth, Betty was content. She enjoyed the process of building something from the ground up, believing that each day was a step closer to their dream. Her optimism was unwavering, and she would often reassure Sarah whenever doubts crept in. One evening, after they had closed the shop, Sarah sat down heavily on a stool, her face a mix of exhaustion and frustration. Betty, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this, she said with a sigh. We work so hard, extra hard day and night, but it feels like we're just barely getting by. Betty looked at her friend and gave a gentle smile. I know it's hard, Sarah, but nothing good comes easy. We are building something special here. With patience and hard work, we will definitely get there. Sarah nodded, but the look in her eyes showed that her mind was elsewhere. She glanced around the small shop, her gaze lingering on the simple decor and the modest display counter. She was tired of just getting by. She wanted to make their bakery famous, to have people lining up around the block for a taste of their cake. As the days went by, Sarah's desire for instant success grew stronger. She wanted to be known, to have Sweet Creations recognized across Uyo as the best bakery in town. She wanted more than just a trickle of customers. She wanted crowds, people talking about their cakes all over the city. And while Betty was content to wait, Sarah felt a deep impatience brewing inside of her. In the following weeks, Betty poured her heart into the bakery. She worked long hours, experimenting with new recipes, decorating cakes with delicate designs, and chatting warmly with customers. Betty believed that with consistency, kindness, and hard work, their little bakery would one day become the talk of Uyo. She was proud of the relationships she was building with the locals, who began to recognize her warm smile and welcoming spirit. But while Betty was focused on the gradual work, Sarah's impatience only deepened. Each time she saw Betty carefully measuring the ingredients or spending hours on intricate cake decorations, Sarah would sigh, feeling that they were wasting precious time. She wanted fame and fortune fast. She wanted Sweet Creations to be the most sought-after bakery in the city. She couldn't understand why Betty didn't share her urgency. One afternoon, as Betty was busy baking in the back, Sarah slipped out of the shop. She had heard whispers in the market about a powerful herbalist named Udofia, a man with a reputation for creating charms that could change fortunes overnight. Sarah made her way to the outskirts of town, her heart racing with anticipation. The herbalist's hut was dimly lit, filled with the scent of burning herbs. Udofia, an older man with piercing eyes, sat calmly as Sarah explained her desire for quick success. "I want our bakery to be the best, to be flooded with customers," she said eagerly. "I want people to crave our cakes, to spread our name across the city." Udofia studied her for a moment, then reached into a box and pulled out a small charm wrapped in a red cloth. This charm would bring you the success you seek. But remember, there is always a price that you must pay. The charm may give you what you desire, but be prepared for the consequences," he said. Sarah took the charm without a second thought. She was convinced that the price, whatever it was, would be worth it at the end. Success was all she could think about. She slipped the charm into her bag and left the herbalist's hut, her mind buzzing with excitement. Later that evening, after closing the shop, Sarah returned to the empty bakery. She carefully unwrapped the charm and placed it in a small drawer behind the counter out of Betty's sight. She whispered a silent wish for success, imagining crowds of people flocking to Sweet Creations, eager to taste their cakes. As she locked the drawer, she felt a strange thrill. She was certain that things were about to change for good. The next morning, when Betty arrived at the bakery, she noticed something different. From the moment they opened the doors, customers began streaming in. People who had never been to Sweet Creations before were all lining up, and every cake seemed to fly off the shelves. Betty was thrilled, thinking that their hard work was finally paying off. But for Sarah, it was more than that. It was the charm that was at work. As the days went on, business continued to boom. Betty was overjoyed by their sudden success, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was very odd. People kept mentioning how they just couldn't resist the cakes and how they had come back. The demand was up so high as they could barely keep up with orders. Betty, astonished by their rapid success, watched in amazement as their once quiet shop was now bustling with eager customers from the moment they opened until late at night. The sound of cash register ringing non-stop felt so surreal. She could hardly keep up with the orders. "Sarah, this is unbelievable," Betty exclaimed one evening as they cleaned up after a particularly hectic day. "I don't know what happened, but people can't seem to get enough of our cakes." Sarah smiled, feigning innocence, as she wiped down the counter. "Maybe it's just good luck, Betty. Or maybe they are finally noticing our hard work." Betty felt a surge of pride, assuming their efforts had finally paid off. She had always believed in their talent, and seeing people appreciate it was a dream come true for her. "We will have to hire more help if this keeps up," Betty said with a laugh. "We are running out of stock faster than I can bake." However, as the days turned into weeks, Betty began to notice some unsettling behavior from their customers. People would come in with a desperate look in their eyes, almost frantic as they waited in line. Some would buy multiple cakes at once. Others came back several times a day, and a few even looked distressed if they couldn't get their hands on a specific cake. One afternoon, a customer pleaded with Betty, "Please, I need 2 more cupcakes. I can't explain it. I just need them. They are like nothing I've ever tasted." Betty forced a polite smile and handed over the cake. though she couldn't shake the strange feeling in her gut. She noticed more customers with the same intense need, their eyes wide with desperation as they clutched their boxes of cake as if they were precious treasures. After the customers left, Betty turned to Sarah, her face filled with concern. "Sarah, have you noticed how strange our customers have been acting? It's like they are addicted to our cakes." Sarah shrugged, brushing off Betty's concerns. "People just love good food, Betty, and we make the best cakes in Uyo. Maybe it's all in your head." But Betty couldn't shake the uneasy feeling growing inside of her. She wanted to believe it was all just due to their improved baking skills and hard work, but something felt wrong. The bakery's success was almost too sudden, too intense. She couldn't ignore how Sarah seemed oddly relaxed about it, as if she had expected this strange reaction from their customers. As their business continued to thrive, Betty noticed another change in Sarah. She was becoming more secretive, often disappearing for short trips with no explanation, and she seemed to revel in their new wealth, buying expensive clothes and talking about upgrading to a larger house. "Sarah, don't you think we should save some of this money for the business?" Betty asked one day, concerned. "We could expand or buy new equipment." Sarah waved her off, grinning. "There is plenty more where this came from. Relax, Betty. We deserve to enjoy the fruits of our labor, don't we?" Betty nodded, trying to ignore her doubt. But in the quiet moment, when she saw the growing desperation in her customers' faces, the feeling of unease lingered. She wondered if their sudden success was really just luck, or if something darker was lurking beneath the surface. One evening, after they closed, Betty decided she had to speak up. She couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. She looked over at Sarah, who was humming happily as she counted the day's earnings. "Sarah," Betty began slowly, her voice hesitant but firm. "Don't you think there's something wrong here? I mean, people are acting like they're obsessed with our cake. This is so unnatural." Sarah barely glanced up, brushing her off with a wave. "Oh, Betty, don't be silly. People love good food, for goodness sake, and we make the best in town. We should be celebrating, not worrying." Betty shook her head. "It's more than that, Sarah. All of this, is not normal. Customers are coming back multiple times a day, acting as if they are addicted. I've even seen a few people argue outside because they wanted the last piece of cake. This doesn't feel so right." Sarah sighed, finally looking up. "Betty, do you know how long I've waited for this moment? How long we've both worked and dreamed for our business to be a success? Now that we are finally getting somewhere, you're letting your doubts ruin it." "I'm not trying to ruin anything," Betty replied. "I just don't understand what's happening, and I can't shake this feeling that something is wrong. If there is anything you're not telling me, Sarah, I need to know." Sarah's face turned cold. For a moment, she looked as if she was going to say something, but instead, she simply smirked and shrugged. "Believe whatever you want, Betty. But if you can't handle the success we've earned, maybe it's time for you to step aside from me." Betty felt a pang in her chest at Sarah's words. It was as if her friend was taunting her, daring her to leave. She didn't want to abandon the bakery they had built together, but she couldn't ignore her instincts. After a long, painful silence, Betty took a deep breath. "Fine, Sarah. If you think you can do it alone, then I'll go. I can't stay and pretend everything is normal when it doesn't feel that way." Sarah's eyes glinted with satisfaction as she replied, "Maybe that's for the best. I will take it from here, Betty." The next morning, Betty gathered her belongings from the bakery, her heart heavy with sorrow. She glanced around at the place she had poured her heart and soul into, feeling a deep sense of loss. It was hard, so hard to believe that this was how their friendship and dreams had ended. With one final look, she turned to Sarah, who was already busy preparing for another busy day. "Good luck, Sarah," she said quietly. Sarah didn't respond, too engrossed in her work, already intoxicated by the promise of wealth and fame. With Betty out of the picture, Sarah's bakery skyrocketed to unimaginable heights. Her cakes became a sensation, drawing in crowds from all around Uyo and even beyond. It was as if people couldn't get enough of her creations. Customers came in, some drove in, lining up before the bakery even opened, eager to get a taste. The shop was always buzzing with activity, and Sarah's register overflowed with cash every blessed day. As her wealth grew, so did her confidence. She no longer needed to work in the bakery herself. She hired a team of staff to handle the baking, cleaning, and customer service. Sarah spent her days in luxury, shopping from the latest fashions, dining at the most exclusive restaurants, and attending high society gatherings. She moved into a spacious new home in one of Uyo's most affluent neighborhoods, furnished with imported furnitures, glittering chandeliers, and all of the luxuries she had once only dreamt of. Her transformation was the talk of the town. People gossiped about her rapid rise, wondering how a simple bakery could make someone so wealthy all of a sudden. Some praised her success, attributing it to her hard work, while others whispered that there was something mysterious behind the bakery. Everywhere Sarah went, she was showered with admiration and respect. She became known as the Cake Queen of Uyo, a name that filled her with pride. She savored every bit of the attention, but each time someone asked her the secret behind her success, she would only give a smile and say it's all hard work and a bit of luck. But deep down, Sarah knew it was something entirely different. The charm from Udofia had granted her wealth, status, and admiration, and she was addicted to the life it provided. Yet, in the quiet moments when she was alone, she would occasionally feel a silver of discomfort, an odd sensation like a shadow lurking in the background. One beautiful afternoon, as Sarah was relaxing in her lavish office at the bakery's second location, she noticed an old loyal customer named Ini walking through the door. Ini looked different. Her skin was pale, her eyes hollow, and she seemed unsteady on her feet. Normally cheerful, Ini now looked haunted, as if she hadn't slept in days. Sarah put on her friendly smile, though a flicker of worry crossed her mind. Ini, it's so good to see you. Are you alright? Ini nodded, her voice hoarse as she whispered, I need another cake, Sarah. I can't go a day without it. Sarah's brows knitted in concern. Of course, Ini, take whatever you need. She quickly picked a small cake for Ini and handed it to her. The moment Ini held the box, she tore into it, stuffing a piece of cake into her mouth right there in the bakery. Her eyes rolled back as she ate, and for a fleeting moment, she looked almost relieved, as though the cake was a remedy she desperately needed. As Sarah watched, a chill ran down her spine. This wasn't normal. Other customers had shown similar signs recently, visiting the bakery repeatedly, eating the cakes with a desperation that seemed almost unnatural. Some even came back multiple times a day, their faces pale and gaunt, looking more like they were feeding an addiction than enjoying a treat. The days went by, and the disturbing behavior among her customers only grew worse. More and more people appeared in the bakery, looking sickly, exhausted, yet they craved her cakes with an unsettling hunger. As Sarah counted the days ending in her office, she couldn't shake a growing sense of dread. Her hands trembled slightly as she thought back to the charm Udofia had given her. His words echoed in her mind, everything comes with a price. As days turned into weeks, the disturbing symptoms among Sarah's customers continued to spread. Some regulars now looked weak, their faces pale and their eyes sunken. They complained of strange headaches, fatigues, and an insatiable craving for her cakes, as though they couldn't function without them. People in Uyo started whispering about the haunted cakes from Sarah's bakery, wondering aloud if something sinister was behind this irresistible taste. Sarah's bakery, once the pride of life, had become a source of fear. Even Sarah could no longer ignore what was happening. She felt a creeping sickness within herself too, a constant tiredness, strange aches, and a growing sense of dread. She told herself it was exhaustion, that maybe she had been working too hard, but deep down, she feared it was something more. One evening, as she sat in her now empty bakery, clutching her stomach in pain, Sarah realized she couldn't keep running from the truth. She needed answers, and only one person could give them to her. Desperate, she returned to Udofia, her face pale and her hands trembling. "What's happening, Udofia?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "My customers, they are all falling ill. I am falling ill myself. You said this charm would bring me success, not sickness." Udofia gazed at her with an unreadable expression, a hint of pity in his eyes. "Sarah, I told you everything comes with a price. You wanted quick success, and now the charm is taking what it gave." Sarah's stomach twisted as she realized the depth of her mistake. She had ignored the warning, blinded by the thrill of instant wealth. Now it seemed the charm was backfiring, spreading illness and ruin. The very success she had craved was now devouring her from the inside out. "Is there a way to stop it?" she asked, desperation coloring her voice. Udofia shook his head slowly. "Once the charm begins to take back what he had given, there is no stopping it. You brought this upon yourself, Sarah. It is too late to undo what has been done." Sarah staggered back, feeling the weight of his words. She left Udofia's hut in a daze, her mind racing with regret and fear, unsure of what awaited her next. The days that followed were a nightmare. Her health continued to deteriorate, and her business began to crumble just as quick as it had risen. Word spread like wildfire through Uyo about the cursed bakery, and soon people stopped coming altogether. Those who had been her most loyal customers now warned others to stay away, fearful of the rumors about strange illnesses and obsessions tied to her cakes. The once crowded bakery stood empty, its windows dusty and shelves bare. Sarah could barely bring herself to open the shop each morning, as her energy drained faster than she could recover it. The second location, which she had once boasted about, was forced to close due to lack of business, and her grand house and luxury car became burdens she could no longer afford. One evening, as she walked into her empty bakery, Sarah tried to remove the charm that Udofia had given her, hoping that breaking the connection would somehow reverse her misfortune. She searched everywhere, every corner, determined to find the small red cloth she had hidden, but no matter where she looked, it seemed to disappear and reappear in the same strange places as though it was mocking her. The charm had become a ghostly presence in her life, impossible to escape. As she wandered the empty bakery, feeling weaker by the moment, Sarah could hear the whispers from people passing outside. They were once admiring, now they were filled with gossip and judgment, stories of how she had risen so quickly, so mysteriously. Some even said she had used dark powers to reach the height of success, and now she was paying the price. Broken and defeated, Sarah returned to her empty cold home. Her luxurious furniture and fine clothes felt hollow and meaningless. She sat alone in her once grand living room, staring at the walls that now seemed to close in on her, haunted by the consequences of her choices. The emptiness and silence were her only companions, a painful reminder of everything she had lost in pursuit of her dreams. Sarah finally understood the terrible cost of her impatience and greed, but it was too late. She was left to endure the bitter reality that she had brought upon herself, unable to escape the spiral of misfortune that had now become her life. With everything gone, her wealth, her health, her reputation, Sarah finally understood the depth of her mistake. The pride and ambition that had driven her to seek shortcuts now felt hollow. She had lost everything, including herself, in her relentless pursuit of success. Her last hope lay with Betty, the friend she had abandoned and betrayed. When Sarah arrived at Betty's bakery, she felt a pang of shame seeing her friend's simple shop. It was filled with warmth and laughter from loyal customers. Betty's small, honest business hadn't expanded to riches, but it had grown steadily. Customers greeted Betty with genuine smiles, showing a loyalty Sarah had never truly earned. Seeing Sarah standing at the doorway, pale and weak, Betty's heart softened. Despite everything, she couldn't turn her back on her old friend. "Betty, I am so sorry," Sarah whispered. "I took a shortcut and now I'm paying heavily for it. Everything I built, everything has crumbled. I don't know what to do. Please, I am here to ask for your forgiveness." Betty sighed deeply, studying Sarah's face. She could see the pain and regret etched in her friend's expression, and although she was hurt by the betrayal, she couldn't ignore Sarah's suffering. "Sarah," she said softly, "success built on lies and shortcuts never lasts. But if you're truly sorry, maybe you can just start all over. It won't be easy, but it's possible." Sarah nodded, her heart filled with gratitude and remorse. Together, they returned to her now empty bakery, where dust coated the shelves and the charm lay hidden in its usual spot. Betty watched as Sarah took the charm out, her hands trembling. Without a word, they walked to the back of the bakery and burnt it. Watching as the small red clothes turned into ashes, taking with it the dark energy that had haunted Sarah's life. In that moment, Sarah felt a strange sense of peace. She had finally broken free from the hold of the charm, and though she had a long road ahead, she was ready to face it honestly. With the charm destroyed, Sarah's life took a new turn. She sold her grand house and her luxury cars, using the money to pay off debts and settle in a modest, quiet home. She began accepting small orders, baking cakes for small local birthdays and events, rebuilding her life one step at a time. The road wasn't easy. Many people in Uyo still spoke of her as the cake seller who lost it all, and trust was hard to regain. But with Betty by her side, Sarah found strength. Betty encouraged her, reminding her that hard work and honesty were the only path to lasting success. As Sarah's reputation slowly mended, Betty's own bakery began to flourish even more. Betty's business was thriving, filled with loyal customers and new staff she could afford to hire as her success grew naturally. Betty had expanded her menu, offering more pastries and treats, and was known for her dedication to quality and kindness. Her bakery became a loved part of the community, with people admiring her perseverance. Sarah worked quietly, content with each small victory, grateful to have another chance, even if it wasn't a grand one. She had learned to appreciate the value of genuine hard work and the fulfillment that came from earning respect. Each cake she baked was a reminder of her journey, the rise and fall that had taught her the true meaning of success. Over time, the people of Uyo began to see Sarah differently. Her story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of ambition without integrity, a lesson passed down among families and young bakers. People respected the changes she had made, and some even returned to her small bakery, giving her a second chance. In the end, Sarah lived a quieter, humbler life, but one filled with purpose and gratitude. She never forgot the price of her mistakes and carried the memory with her as a reminder to cherish the things that truly mattered. Betty and Sarah, two friends who had taken very different paths, found peace in each other's support, grateful for the lessons life had taught them and the friendship that had endured through it all. The story of Betty and Sarah teaches that true success comes from hard work, patience, and honesty. Taking shortcuts may bring temporary rewards. They often lead to unforeseen consequences that can unravel everything. Sarah's journey shows that the pursuit of wealth without integrity can ultimately backfire, leaving lasting regret and loss. On the other hand, Betty's steady dedication and genuine approach to her craft led her to a lasting respect and fulfillment. In the end, both friends learned that lasting success and peace comes from choices grounded in integrity and resilience. Thank you so much for watching this fantastic story on African Stories by Tiana. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing stories. See you next time.